So, Minister, I just want to ask the question. I want just a progress to date on replacing the Disabled Drivers Medical Board of Appeal.
Thank you very much. The Disabled Drivers and Disabled Passengers Scheme provides relief from vehicle registration tax and VAT on an adapted car, as well as an exemption from motor tax and an annual fuel grant. The scheme is open to severely and permanently disabled persons as a driver or as a passenger, and also to certain charitable organisations. In order to qualify for relief, the applicant must hold a primary medical cert issued by the relevant senior area medical officer or a board medical certificate issued by the Disabled Driver Medical Board of Appeal. To qualify for a primary medical cert, an applicant must be permanently and severely disabled and satisfy at least one of the 6 medical criteria. It is expected that the Board of Appeal will be established shortly. The background is that following the resignation of all members of the previous board, effective from the end of November 2021, 2 expression of interest campaigns have been held, seeking suitable candidates for the board. The Department of Health has led on all actions and tasks with respect to the expression of interest campaigns. The officials from my own department have provided support to the Department of Health in this matter. The first campaign closed on the 29th of April. As there were insufficient suitable candidates arising from the first campaign, a second round was issued with a closing date of the 5th of July 2022. From these, 3 suitable candidates have successfully completed Garda vetting. 5 members are legislatively required for a functional board, with a quorum of 3 needed for any appeal hearing. 2 other candidates have recently been deemed suitable, are in the process of being Garda vetted. All 5 candidates have been nominated by the Minister of Health, pending successful completion of the Garda vetting. I am hopeful that the new board will be up and running in the next few weeks, and perhaps in my next reply I can just outline the details of the review of this scheme, which is underway.
Okay, thank you, Minister. So we don't have a definite date for the start of when the medical board will actually be established, because I've asked this question a number of times to your predecessor, Minister Donoghue, and I've also linked it in with the proposed review of the Disabled Drivers and Disabled Passengers Scheme, because to apply for a primary medical cert to access the scheme, the criteria is extremely stringent. And that is the reason that the Board of Appeal actually resigned at the end of November 2021. They were promised a review of the scheme some months prior to that, actually maybe up to a year prior to that, and when they didn't see that happening, they resigned in total frustration, because people who apply for the primary medical cert, many of them don't actually qualify because the criteria is so stringent. So when they're refused it, they appeal the decision, and the appeal is only upheld if their condition has deteriorated significantly, and that's generally as a result of a progressive condition. Many people are applying for this scheme because they don't have any other options open to them. There were 2 other schemes, the Mobility Allowance and the Motorised Transport Grant, but they were both suspended in 2013 with a promise that they would be a new scheme will be introduced shortly after that, and that is 10 years on, we still don't have that. And what we have is a very inequitable system, because we have some people who actually applied for that scheme and were approved for it prior to 2013 are still in receipt of the mobility allowance, and others who should be able to avail of that scheme are actually being denied.
Thanks very much, Deputy. And look, just to reassure you that the Minister for Health has made the appointment of the 5 members of the Board of Appeal. Garda vetting is being completed at the moment, and that is why I am hopeful, and I'm led to understand that the new board will be up and running in the next few weeks. Just to make the point as well that assessments for the primary medical cert by the HSE are continuing to take place. I acknowledge that there are a lot of appeals awaiting processing. There are currently 759 people awaiting an appeal hearing, with 382 of those dating back to 2021. So I'm really anxious that we make progress in this issue. I absolutely recognise the value of this scheme and what it means to people. As you are aware, my predecessor, Minister Donoghue, committed to a comprehensive review of the scheme under the auspices of a broader review of mobility supports. In order to achieve this, Minister O'Gorman agreed in September 2021 that the review of this scheme should be incorporated into the work of the National Disability Inclusion Strategy Transport Working Group. The working group, under the chairpersonship of Minister Anne Rabbitte, held a number of meetings across last year. A draft report was considered at its final meeting on the 8th of December 2022 and is currently being finalised. It's expected that it will be published soon, and I can assure you I will be giving this matter my own personal attention to try and move it on. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. It's just supposed to remind us that people's rights are being infringed upon here. We as a state ratified the UNCRPD in 2018, and here we are nearly 5 years later, and basically no transport scheme in place for disabled people. The disabled driver and disabled passenger scheme is extremely limited and only applies to a small number of very disabled people. So we need to look at more schemes. I was going to ask you for an update on when the report from the Transport Working Group will be published. You say it's shortly. I hope that is very, very shortly. And as you referred, there are over 700 people waiting for appeals. I'm constantly being contacted by people asking them when will their appeal be heard, and I'm telling them there's no board in place to hear that appeal. What resources are you going to put into this scheme to help deal with the backlog of cases as well? And just to say, I suppose in particular, this affects people living in rural Ireland, because there is very little public transport as it is, never mind accessible transport, and the local link is quite sporadic in where it runs and how often it runs and so on. So while people in urban areas may have choices regarding public transport, buses and trains, people in rural areas definitely do not, and they need schemes in place to assist them. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Deputy Tully. And look, I hear what you're saying. I have had quite an amount of experience as a TD over recent years dealing with the scheme, dealing with people who in some cases qualify, and other people who have been waiting for their appeal to be heard. And I know it's very frustrating for people who have very severe disability in many instances to be waiting so long to have their appeal heard and to, as they would see it, get the benefits of this scheme, which is a good scheme broadly, but I think there is a need for reform, there is a need for changes. The way that was agreed some time ago of progressing that was through this working group that Minister Gorman set up, which Minister Rabbitte has chaired, and the draft report, as I said, was considered on the 8th of December 2022 and is currently being finalised. I haven't seen that report, but I do hope to receive it at an early date, and look forward to considering it and to acting on the recommendations insofar as they fall within my own remit.